Hello, everyone, and welcome to another All Blaze No Glory YouTube special. I'm joined today by Mike Ricketti. Mike was born in Philadelphia and grew up in Jersey and is a proud Philadelphia Eagles fan. How are you doing, Mike?
Very good. Thank you, Rambo.
Mike, first and foremost, is it sort of a rite of passage where you grew up to be an Eagles fan, or do you have a choice? Can you veer towards the New York teams?
No, you really can't veer to the New York teams in South Jersey. South Jersey we're right across the river from Philadelphia, and we are Eagles fans, Flyers fans, Phillies fans, 76ers fans. When you get into North Jersey, then you have mostly New York Jets and Giants. The middle of New Jersey, they can kind of go either way. But in our area, a lot of the players live in South Jersey. I grew up with most of the Philadelphia Flyers in my neighborhood. The coach of the Flyers lived across the street from me, Fred Shira. Goalie Bernie Parent was on my Halloween route where we used to go trick-or-treating for Halloween. So the players all live in South Jersey, and the basketball team practices in South Jersey. So we're very connected. There's 4 bridges between us, and there's no choice. You're a Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Fair enough. It's always interesting. I mean, when you're from the UK, you kind of get the chance to kind of float or pick a team that you like the colours of. But It's interesting to hear a true fan from day one.
Right.
Yeah. So, but the good thing for you as well, of course, is you suffered the hardships for the Eagles before that Super Bowl win. Could you tell me a little bit about the feeling when they got that Super Bowl win?
Yeah, well, everyone suffered the hardships. My father did. And that was the most remarkable thing about it was the stories that people were able to tell about their family, about their parents, family that was able to see it, that had waited so long, and family that wasn't able to see it. My father wasn't. My father died a few years before. He suffered through all of the bad seasons, and it was. And now my son, Becca, who you know, is also a huge Eagles fan. Growing up with my father, buying him all the equipment, and it was wonderful, and it was very emotional, as you can imagine. At the time they won, Becca wasn't living in the United States, so we were watching the game kind of together, texting back and forth. And when you finally realized it, that they were going to win, it was just a surreal feeling. It was something, especially that season, we had no expectations that they would be able to do it. And I know Beckett did as well. We immediately flashed back to my father, who brought us up as Eagles fans and took us to games, and was always, when we weren't at the game, we were at a bar that had a halftime buffet that we could have. And I told this story to Beckett too, that the next day when I went to buy this very hat, it was then I was in line and I looked down at the hat and I realized, wow, this was it. This was what my father had wanted for so many years, and what Becca and I were able to realize. And at the parade, we went into the parade. My wife Savdia and I went in, and I wore my father's old jacket with the Kelly green and the eagle holding the football that Randall Cunningham, used to wear. And it was something there. I mean, there were people in tears on the parade route, hugging family members and other people, and just remembering relatives that had waited so long for this. And I know, people say it's just sports and it's just football, but in certain cities, in certain places, it really is more than that. And this was, it was a wonderful experience. Wonderful.
Brilliant. It's good to get a sort of recap of that from someone who's sort of closer. It was closer to home for. I mean, I remember watching it and cheering wildly when Nick Foles caught that touchdown pass.
Yes.
And then the next year, of course, the Eagles were at London, and I went with my grandpa, and he got a Carson Wentz top because he always liked to get the quarterbacks. That was his favorite position.
Right.
And I veered the other way, and I went Nick Foles for my jersey, even though I never saw him play. That day he was a backup, but it was a big deal. Even if you weren't an Eagles fan, I think it was huge. But I mean, to experience that in person must have been great.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, I mean, part of the magical part was the unexpectedness of it. I remember, early in the season when they were losing to the Giants and got, a late field goal of over 50 yards. And it seemed like, could this be something? But it was so early in the season and everything was so unproven. And then quarterback goes down and, Nick Foles, we all loved him, but, this was not someone we thought would bring Super Bowl. And we'll discuss. You can see it was just the one magical year because since then nothing has fallen into place the same way. But that one season and that one moment was something that we'll always remember.
Brilliant. And looking at the NFC East this year, I think I've heard people say it. It's kind of being described as the NFC least this year in terms of the divisions. Do you see it ranked that way? Or, I mean, the AFC South is pretty crummy as well. So how do you view it as an NFC fan?
Yeah, there's so many questions in it. That's what I see. All the teams are coming off of terrible years. It seems, at least with the other divisions, there's one team that you can look at that can bring some maybe pride to that division. Where with the NFC East, after last season, there's questions everywhere. They could end up being wonderfully competitive and great games. They certainly have easy schedules, but there's question marks. There's things that are not going to be good. There's not all that much that is going to be great. Hopefully it'll be better than last year. It wasn't just that the teams were bad, but the games weren't good. It wasn't good football. And the least you want is at least a good football game every Sunday. So I do see it as a question mark. I see it more as a question mark than a definite that it's going to be terrible. I'm sure it's not going to be the best division, but there's some potential. And I'm sure we'll get into it as we talk about each team, but there's some potential for some change. And I think all the teams know that they have to change from last year because even Washington doesn't want to win it the way they won it last year. So I guess there's a lot of anticipation and a lot of apprehension, I think, going into the first game. We had, I think, a combined one win in the preseason amongst the four teams. And the Eagles got a tie. And I know it's just preseason, but still, that's, not how you want to begin.
Yeah. I mean, and we shouldn't forget that tie was the Jets coming back from a few points.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to bring it up, but
no, that's okay. That's okay. I was trying to get away with that. But thank you.
So if we go around the NFC East and have a chat about each team, we'll leave
sure
till the end.
Okay.
We'll start with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, last year, if anyone was going to impress, I thought the Cowboys were it. Obviously, right. Dak Prescott started the year like he was going to put up numbers that far surpassed even Brady and the like. What do you make of their chances this year and the uncertainty around Dak Prescott's injury status?
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the teams that have so much potential. I mean, everyone seems to describe their offense as explosive, and it has such potential to be. You have Dak if he's on. You have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and and then you have Ezekiel Elliott. And on paper, it just looks brilliant. But you have questions with Dak, and then you have questions with the offensive line. Again, they're coming back healthier than they were last year, but that remains a question mark. But you have to think that it's a strength of theirs, the offense. And I mean, Dak, when he is healthy, he's able to find the receivers downfield. He has so many weapons that the other teams don't have. But then again, there's more questions about their defense. Are they going to be able to score enough points for what their defense is going to give up? A lot of their defensive linemen are coming off of injury. I know DeMarcus Lawrence is, and their defensive tackles have been a weakness. I don't see that they've addressed a lot of this. Their linebacking this year with Micah Parsons, who they drafted, that could be something. Their linebackers, they always place a priority. Eagles do not, but Dallas Cowboys have always placed a priority on their linebacking core, and that could be a strength. But cornerback, I see as a weakness or a question at least. So it's one of those where it's not really a balanced team, but they have the potential to score so many points that it might not even matter how much their defense is giving up. How do you see them?
I think a lot lies heavily on how Dak gets on following his injury. I think you're right. I think they'll be, if he's okay, they'll be explosive on offense. Of course, by the time we finish recording this, Cam Newton might be a Dallas Cowboy, is the rumor.
That's true.
So that could change their chances even with Dak down. But I think yeah, they're going to be explosive on offense. They kind of annoy me. I used to go to the games with Grandpa, and he could get any shirt he liked, but not a Dallas Cowboys shirt.
Thank you.
Yeah, or a Patriots shirt, but the Cowboys are the Patriots.
Okay.
I just couldn't fathom it. So,
yeah,
I kind of hope they're kind of crap, to be honest with you, but I think they could be quite good this year. Certainly on offense, I don't know how they'll be defensively, which probably is the strength of the next team we should talk about, which is the Washington football team. Now they've shed their past.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of have a soft spot for them, largely because I love Ryan Fitzpatrick's beard game, and pretty much he just seems like a nice guy. But I think they probably have a pretty strong defense compared to their offense. For me, what do you make of Washington? What's the vibes you're getting? You've had.
I agree with you. Their defense is a strength. Chase Young. They have a great defensive line. Ron Rivera is a great coach, someone that I like a lot, and seems to find a way to get to his players, and it seems to be working well with the defense. I actually see them as a more balanced team. Question there. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's a great leader. Players seem to love playing with him, but he gets into those situations where he begins to throw interceptions, and there's the potential that he leads the league in interceptions, and if he stays focused and everything that Ron Rivera is saying he believes that he's the solution to this. They have the weapons. They have the running backs, certainly. They have 3 excellent running backs. They have the wide receivers. They brought in players. They've tried to surround Ryan Fitzpatrick with weapons. I really see them as the most balanced team. I mean, last year they were really strong on defense, as you said, and their offense with uncertainty of the quarterback, Alex Smith, great story, but like the they weren't able to find that quarterback. They haven't been for years able to find that quarterback. I don't know. Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't sound like the answer, but he could be, and he could be enough with that defense and with the weapons that they have. I surprisingly, going into the season, I see them as the most balanced team in the division.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
You brought up Alex Smith. I normally don't worry about players being injured because it's part and parcel of sport, and you know they're getting paid lots of money to do something they love doing. But I have to say the most frightening thing I saw last season was when Aaron Donald basically jumped on his back. I mean, he was playing the game; it wasn't anything dirty, but that was after him just coming in. It was, even as a Rams fan wanting the Rams to win, it was heart and mouth stuff from Smith. So brave boy, but probably glad he's retired, so I don't feel panicked for his well-being anymore.
Right.
And yeah, I think I probably agree with you that they are pretty balanced. It'll be interesting to see how Fitzpatrick, because they do have some weapons as well in McLaurin and the like. So it'll be interesting to see how Fitzpatrick uses them.
Their offensive line, again, there's some question from what I've been hearing, the depth of the offensive line. You're always going to get injuries along the line, and who you start with isn't always as important as who you finish with. And I don't know that they have the depth. They have some all pros on there. They have a rookie, Sam Cosmi, but I don't know if they have the depth to protect Ryan Fitzpatrick while his receivers get down and get open. Like you said, McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, that they signed to pair with him. You know, if he's going to have the time, or if he's going to feel the pressure, and then it's going to be interceptions, which can be a problem. Yeah,
that's fair. So, and then next moving to the Giants. I think Kenny kind of hinted last night that the Giants have went from Eli Manning to Eli Manning light in Daniel Jones. But I mean, I don't know an awful lot about the Giants this year, to be honest with you. There's a lot of moving parts in the last few seasons. But you know, what's the sort of vibe from the Giants? They're kind of an afterthought for me in this division, but maybe not actually. I don't know.
They are, and I'm reading things, you know, from New York sports writers saying like, well, the division's so bad, why not us? But they have, there's so many questions. Again, like you said, quarterback, he seemed to regress last year. You know, is he going to be able to, you know, to take that next step? Of course, judging him without Saquon Barkley there isn't really fair. Can Saquon come back to what he was? They seem to be going with two fullbacks this year. Maybe they'll have different packages in that way. They have the wide receivers. They've signed free agents. Tight ends, they don't really have that much strength at tight end. Their offensive line in the last preseason game was terrible. And some of their players that they thought were coming in, Shane Mew, injured with a patella, now they're saying maybe a torn patella tendon, and Andrew Thomas, who was thought to be something, didn't have a very good game last preseason game. So again, if you're not going to be able to protect Daniel Jones, is he the type of quarterback that's going to be able to make plays on his own? I don't know. There are more questions with the Giants. And in fact, there was a New York Post article, I think it was today, that said we're going into the season with more questions than answers. So it seems to be that they're kind of settled on that. They have a good defensive line. They have good cornerbacks. They signed some free agents there. And whether Joe Judge is going to be able to and whether Jason Garrett's going to be able to come up with some magical plays on offense, I'm not sure that I trust him. But yeah, it's one of those, like we said at the beginning, there's question marks everywhere. So it could certainly, be the team that's standing at the end because everybody else has so many questions. But it just doesn't, it's not an optimistic time in New York for them, for either team, actually.
No. I feel sorry for Daniel Jones because his biggest highlight of his career was cracking off this amazing 60-yard run and then face planting with no one around him.
Yeah.
So I kind of hope he does. I kind of hope he does something this year so people kind of forget about that.
A few completions. Yeah, it would be good.
and finally, your Philadelphia Eagles. This year, I remember actually speaking to your son Berkey on the drive back from our ice hockey game recently, and he mentioned that Jalen Hurts is the starter, but hasn't had a preseason snap and has played four or five games in his career so far. So that's a question, yes. Of course. But how are Philly looking this year?
There's more uncertainty again. That we have new coaches, new coordinators, an unproven quarterback. There's potential, and at least they're trying to sell it as potential. But as you said, it's a whole new regime in there, and they have taken to very short practices in training camp. Practice sessions are an hour and 15 minutes at the most, which is by far the least time spent on the field in the league. They never tackled to the ground. So until the preseason games, the defense hadn't tackled anyone to the ground, literally. And this was all because we've gone through, in Philadelphia, they've gone through 3 seasons of injuries. And they were, in head coach words, that they are using their practice time wisely. They're doing meetings so that when they're on the field, they're able to optimize the time there so that they don't have to be practicing quite as much. But Jalen Hurts I think he's had now 10 snaps. He didn't start the last game. He was supposed to start the second game and was hospitalized with a stomach virus before that. He looks great in practice, but he's red shirt there, so nobody's really touching him. But on the other hand, he's a mobile quarterback, so you're not going to be able to see what he can do until he's really under pressure, and he's flushed, and he's making decisions on the run. It could be that that's where he shines. He has speed. They're confident now in their 3 wide receivers now, with Devante Smith, who his routes are perfect, are beautiful. He has the speed. He has the will to go up and get stuff. It seems like Javon Hargrave is finally set this year as the number 2. Quez Watkins, who was a surprise that he seems to be starting in the slot now. A muscular, fast receiver in the slot. So they seem like they're going with those 3. They have Greg Ward. The cuts were to John Hightower, who everyone had high hopes for a couple years ago. Travis Fulgham, who was the number 1 receiver in the league last year for 4 weeks, and then fell completely off, was cut and is now on the practice squad. They're going with, I don't know if you know, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who was a 2nd-round pick and has struggled to even make the team. They seem like they may be putting him in the slot. Tight ends, of course, Zach Ertz now is happy to be on the team. His last statement. They have 2 very good tight ends in Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. And their offensive line is a strength. They all seem to be back healthy. Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, that they brought in as a backup, Jason Kelsey, of course. And you must love Jordan Mailata. They're a rugby player in there, starting on the left side for an NFL team. Brilliant. He came in and won the job from a first round draft pick. Wonderful. And he's from what I've heard, he's been working with the middle linebackers because he's gotten his technique down, that he's able to move into the second level, and he's trying to learn how to deal with the middle linebackers. And he's 350 pounds, and to think of him coming at a middle linebacker is a wonderful thought if you're an Eagles fan. So, but again, you have a quarterback who completely unproven, and you have wide receivers who look so fast, and they're making these brilliant one-handed catches on the practice field, but nothing. And a head coach that's never been a head coach, that's never really even called plays, and defensive coordinator that's younger than some of the players. So there's a lot of potential, but I don't know. How do you see it?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. That's why I was asking the questions. I think Jalen Hurts is sneaky under the radar. I think he might be okay this season. He came in last season where there was a lot of difficulties and going on with the football team as they were. There was injuries and all sorts, and probably a little bit of a kind of almost toxic situation with Wentz in the background, because I know that he wasn't happy about Hurts being there. So I think he's got that monkey off his back now. He's played a few games, and I think there's a chance that the Eagles could do something offensively. I also is it Devante Smith that is the first round draft pick from Alabama. Yeah. I watched it was either I think it was the semi-final, and normally the quarterbacks stand out in these things. In every game it's how do the quarterbacks play, but Devante Smith is something special. So I think every Eagles fan should be excited about that. I know they whiffed the year before in the draft and one of these good wide receivers, so they certainly didn't do that this year in Devante Smith. I think he will be an all-pro one day, and I'd quite like to see the Paddy Power odds on him being offensive rookie of the year actually as well. I think he could really light it up this year. The other thing I'm not so sure about is the Eagles defense. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, their defense was kind of under the radar because of the Foles story, but the Eagles had a really good defense back then. How's it sort of looked? I've not seen a lot of them in preseason this year. How is it? Obviously losing the lead to the Jets isn't great, but that's a second and third string. How's the how's the defense looked for the Eagles this year?
Well, their strength is the line again, with Fletcher Cox, and the edge rushers, their defensive ends. They have Josh Sweat, seems to be ready to have a breakout year, and Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. They brought in Ryan Kerrigan from the Washington football team to add some more experience. They have a lot of depth on their offensive line, both at tackle and in end. And they brought in Javon Hargrave last year, was injured, was transitioning to a new style of defense. He has looked, reports say he has looked great as well. So they need that pressure because their cornerbacks and their safeties are always a question. Recently have been. You have Darius Slay, cornerback, and he's usually put on in the best wide receiver. They did sign Steve Nelson from the Steelers, and it was it was a 1-year deal, I believe. Not a major signing that anybody took note of, but it could be a key to their defense, because Avonte Maddox was their slot corner, who was forced to play outside, and he was not able to compete for balls last season, and that was very disruptive to the entire defense. Now, bringing Steve Nelson in allows Avonte Maddox to move back to the slot, his natural position where he is very good. It could be actually, out of all this, that we actually have 3 cornerbacks that play at a high level. The problem is, of course, beyond them, the depth, there's very little depth. And same thing with safeties. They brought in Anthony Harris. You have Rodney McLeod coming back from injury. But past that, you have rotating. Now, during the Super Bowl year, again, it was something where each player that stepped up was able to fill that position. Of course, you had Brian Dawkins back there coordinating everything, which is a huge loss. Not having someone there like that, but everyone that stepped in, people that we didn't, as fans, didn't even know coming in, we would make jokes about who these players were, and they would come in and there would be batted balls away. There would be, a lot of challenges. Everyone seemed to rise to it that year. And since then, it hasn't happened. Last year, it hasn't. And the linebacking position, again, that's something that, when I was growing up with the Eagles, that was a source of pride for the team. Bill Berge, you had all these linebackers that were, and they haven't really invested in linebackers. This year, they brought in Eric Wilson, and Alex Singleton last year played very well. So you have a little bit of that, but if the line can't get to the quarterback, if the quarterback's given time, there's a chance that the secondary will be able to be picked apart, the Eagles. So, and I don't know if that offense is going to score quite enough to make up for the defense. So that's the concern. That's the concern. It's my concern, at least.
Okay. Well, now that we've went round the teams, who makes the playoffs out of this division?
I'm going to have to say Washington, just as the most balanced team with a respected and experienced head coach. It's a huge question mark for me at quarterback. And I don't know that they go much further than making the playoffs. And there's some statistic where Washington has never repeated as the champion of the division. I don't know if that, but it could be. So I don't know if I'm asking a lot for that, but with so many question marks elsewhere, Dallas's defense and the Eagles and Giants, I would have to say Washington.
I know how painful that was for you to say.
Yeah, it is. It is. Not as painful as having to say if I had to say the Cowboys, but.
I presume that the Cowboys are the most hated team in the division in terms of rivalry.
They're the most hated team in all sports. Yeah, and I don't think nothing reaches. We put up with the arrogance of the New York teams. You hate the Yankees, you hate the Mets, hate the Rangers, hate the Islanders, but nothing reaches the hatred of the Cowboys. And we have transplanted Dallas people in the Philadelphia area, and we have people that grew up in the Philadelphia area as Cowboys fans. And I don't understand what the upbringing was like, how that happened, because it could never have happened in my family. So,
and just since obviously you've got a lot more experience watching football, Philadelphia football in the years, who is sort of, I appreciate that Nick Foles is probably the one that everyone wants cast in bronze, but who is in your opinion, the best player that you've seen play for the Philadelphia Eagles?
That I've seen play. Wow. We had some great defensive players. Reggie White on the line was so dominant for so many years, and such a great leader. Really brought in the whole idea of free agency into the league, which was the reason he ended up finishing his career with the Packers. And Brian Dawkins. We had my mind goes to the defense, to Bill Berge. We did have some great quarterbacks, personalities like Ron Jaworski. But I would say Reggie White, Jerome Brown, who was tragically killed when he was young. But those defenses, that's what I mean. You know, the Northeast football, that was what we grew up with. Was, you know, your offense, you had the flash, you had some wide receivers that were wonderful, but Harold Carmichael, who just got into the Hall of Fame. But it was defense, and in football particularly, in hockey as well. But in football, defense was what we wanted. We wanted to see running backs, Wilbert Montgomery, a lot of the running backs that we had running hard. Hopefully Miles Sanders this year will be able to get it together. We like the ground game, the running backs. Philadelphia fans love the trenches, the offensive line and the defensive line. I think we put more discussion into the offensive line and defensive line than any team does. The skill players, the so-called skill players, we love and we know them, but it's you know, when it gets cold and it's raining, we don't have, our stadium isn't covered and it's snowing and people are throwing snowballs on the field. It's you know, it's the offensive line and the defensive line that we're respecting. So that's where my mind goes.
Well, that's a good summary there for anyone that wants to go and, you know, Google some of these players that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And you know, go do that, and I'm sure you'll learn some things. So from the NFL as a whole, who do you see as the two Super Bowl teams this season? Which is not an easy question.
No, it's not. It's not. I have to say, the Rams look good. They really do. They seem to know what they want to do. The organization seems strong. It's tough. I mean, even their division, Seattle was always dangerous with Russell Wilson. San Francisco seems like they might be something. Green Bay, Tampa. I wouldn't want to count Tampa out either. But I would say, if I had to pick one team, I would say, coming out of the NFC, I would say the Rams. I would say the Rams. Coming out of the AFC, I would say Kansas City and Buffalo. I know in a previous program, Matt was able to kind of give a good rundown of Buffalo, but it's true. I mean, they seem like they're ready, and it seems like this could be the season for them. So I could see Buffalo and Rams. I could see Kansas City being in there, Tampa, maybe Green Bay, Baltimore Ravens. They're a tough team.
Fair enough. Well, that's a good summary of the NFL as a whole. Right, before I let you go, I think you deserve some bonus time. Do you want to give us sort of 30 seconds on why Ron Hextall is the greatest goalie of all time?
Oh yes, I do. He has the attitude of the city. He so captured our imagination. He came from a family of skaters and was the only goaltender in the family, and had to fight for that position. I mean, how many other goaltenders are looking to score? I mean, it was just, and you know, his toughness, his attitude. Seeing him with the Penguins, of course, is just heartbreaking at this point. But all respect to him wherever he ends up, whatever he does. Having met him, brought Barquette and meet him when my son was young, and he was just. I'm sure that I've gone over the 30 seconds. I could talk all day about it, but just a great fit for Philadelphia. You know, that rookie season, what happened in Philadelphia with goaltender being killed, and then being able to rise up with Ron Hextall that year, winning the Conn Smythe on the losing team, getting Wayne Gretzky's respect, and taking the team as far as he possibly could. And then the fighting. I mean, he had everything. He had his competitive edge, whatever he could do. And of course the scoring. Thank you for allowing me that. That was unexpected and very good. Thank you.
I didn't. I thought I would spring that on you because if
thank you,
we'd have never got finished.
Exactly.
So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us and agreeing to do this.
Oh, thank you for having me, inviting me here. This was wonderful. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to catch up with you. Haven't spoken to you in a while. I hope after the decade I've known you, I've known that the Eagles have been searching for a quarterback. I know they found something in Foles for a little while, but I hope they finally found it for you this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here. Thank you.